Anarchists. Are these the true freedom fighters of society who can lead us out of this mess? I don't think so. Even though at a glance it seems like these are the well-meaning, anti-establishment idealists, I feel like for the most part the anarchist movement leads to a dead end. First of all, there's a tendency of this movement to be very intimidating to people, from the fashion and aesthetics to what I find is mostly very dry and academic literature. If you look at the typical independent zines and the books by figures such as Noam Chomsky, they're pretty boring for most people. It seems confusing for most people to understand what the anarchists are all about. When you walk into their bookstores or their book fairs, you wonder, are they anarchists or communists? Is it the same thing? Are we encouraged to elect the communist government? Are we supposed to think that Marx and Che Guevara were the good guys? The bookstore seems to be filled with mostly historical books that tell you about political movements, insurgencies, ideologies from many years back, but from what I can tell, they really fail to connect the dots and inform the people of what is going on right now. I get that they are anti-capitalist, but it seems like they're not willing to go any deeper and fall into the usual Hegelian dialectic. You look at the aesthetic that these zines or independent publications are made with. Do you think that any person who is used to getting their news from the mainstream media would be inclined to pick up something like this? I don't think so. I just find that it's not inviting for the general population. It's kind of cultish. Now also, the anarchist scene includes a lot of feminism, queer theory, and LGBT rights, which I'm not against, but I feel like it segregates this group of people even more from the mainstream. It seems like a distraction, especially since at the anarchist book fairs that thousands of people in most large cities, there will be very minimal mention, if any, of the New World Order, false flags, controlled opposition. You see no breakdown of propaganda in the mainstream news and the historical role of the CIA and social engineering. If you want to do a quick test, just try Googling the words anarchy or anarchist and New World Order, and then try something like anarchist and feminism or environmentalism, and you'll see the difference. I mean, no wonder people are turning to YouTube to get the real scoop. It's a shame because people who go to these book fairs and delve into the scene, such as myself, are exactly the type of people who might be curious to learn more about the way this world is being run, the story behind the official story, connecting the dots. From what I can tell, the biggest issue we face right now is getting everybody informed, getting deprogrammed. That is the first step out of this madness. I've gone to many of these anarchist events, and it seems like we're left with mostly very abstract and compartmentalized theories about communism versus capitalism, revolutions of the past, animal rights, environmentalism, human rights, anti-oppression, atheism, class war, DIY, anti-racism, anti-fascism. But it's funny because these anarchists who preach about class war and the proletariat mostly push publications that are written in a language suitable for academics, who are mostly upper middle class. And there's nothing wrong with these topics I mentioned, but it just seems like they're missing the root cause of everything. For example, at the anarchist bookstores and book fairs, it seems pretty rare to see some simple, straightforward material on the Rockefeller and Rothschild banking systems, which is like the key to the system we call capitalism today, isn't it? What about Luciferianism? Why aren't these hardcore atheists debunking the elite's occult belief system? Which makes me wonder, what if there's some sort of agreement that these anarchist community organizers will leave out the main pieces of the puzzle? What if the whole movement is controlled opposition? After all, the anarchy philosophy can often sound like the Luciferian do what thou wilt. And anarchists do love chaos, which relates to the idea that the elites will one day create order out of chaos. I mean, who knows? Really, to the powers that be, there's nothing that dangerous about some shabby-looking, environmentalist, queer-friendly, intellectual atheists, as long as it remains abstract and not very accessible to the general mainstream population, as long as it seems intimidating, kind of juvenile, and as long as they're not uncovering any fundamental truths about where this world is being directed by the powers that be. Anyway, I might be totally wrong here. Maybe the anarchists will save us all. I'm just throwing this out there because I'm concerned that many people who are politically minded, skeptical of the system that we're living in, are getting herded into this weird scene that seems pretty aimless and uninclusive. Think about the divide and conquer strategy of the elite. If that's what they want for their greedy control purposes, it's probably in our best interest to do the exact opposite, which is to not be divided and try to reach out to one another, building bridges and common ground. Most people want to be happy, and the actual anarchy symbol is currently perceived by the public as somewhat loaded with pessimism, violence, and anger. As far as I'm concerned, real change is most likely to happen when it's approachable. My 2 cents. Thank you for listening.